Well, I'm Jerry McKee. Welcome to Prime Time. We're going to upload this instead of shooting it live. We've had a couple of things there, but I want to introduce you to Richard Sterban. He is the Oak Ridge Boys, the bass. He's been singing bass for them for many, many years. If you don't know who he is, play Elvira, the song. Everybody's heard that. So we're going to be talking to Richard Sterban from the Oak Ridge Boys.
Well, when we're talking about when you come back from seventh grade to eighth grade, and now you're a bass, it kind of remind me of the sitcom of the Brady Bunch when Bobby all of a sudden got that deep voice. They're supposed to sing somewhere or another as a little group and stuff, and and they was like shocked. I can imagine that your teacher was kind of shocked in teaching the music that you come.
Well, well, you're correct about that. She could not believe the difference, because just a few months earlier I was singing tenor, and all of a sudden I'm in the second bass section. So that was a major difference. There's no doubt about that.
Now, did you notice your voice changing, or is it like kind of gradual? Like when we grow up, we don't recognize these things. Uh,
Well, a lot of times a lot of young boys, they go through this period of time where it takes a while, and they get the squeaky sound of their voice, and one minute they're talking up high, next minute they're talking down low, and I'm not sure where they quite fit in. But it seemed to me it almost happened like almost overnight. It did not happen, but it seemed that way. So, and it happened pretty quickly for me personally.
wow. Did your parents sing? Did they? Because
Well, in church, my father sang in church, and my mother, but not professionally in any way. I'm really the only one in my family that ever, sang in a professional way. But I'm thankful and blessed that I was able to have that career. But I'm really the only one in my family.
wow, and you know when I know as a boy that you played some baseball as a young boy, and you kind of like sports a little bit there too, but also you like the singing part. What was the tipping point from which one you wanted to choose?
Well, it was probably pretty much an easy choice. Well, you can tell by the way I'm dressed with my cap here, my Nashville Sounds, shirt on. I still to this day, I'm a huge baseball fan. I love baseball. It's a passion of mine. But I was not at a very old stage in my life when I realized I did not have the talent to be a ball player. So I remained a huge fan, and I decided to follow my heart and pursue my ability to sing. And I think I made pretty much the right decision.
Well, I think you did too. You even got to meet Reggie Jackson.
I sure did. Not just, you're right. I had a chance to meet Reggie. Uh, he at one time our baseball team, the Nashville Sounds, we were a Yankees farm team, and he actually came to Nashville as a hitting instructor, and I had a chance to meet him. And also for a while we were with the Oakland A's, and he came to Nashville as well. So I had a chance to meet him and a lot of major league ball players. It's kind of interesting. It's so many great things have been able to happen to me personally, and not just me, but all the Oak Ridge boys. We've had such a great career. The good Lord has blessed us. So many great things have happened to us.
Well, that was great. I know that. Now, when you're growing up with your fine voice like that, did you ever any radio stations or television stations? Hey, we need you to do some voiceover.
Well, I've dabbled in voiceovers. I've done a few things. In fact, I was talking a few minutes ago about my love of baseball. I've actually sat in with our broadcaster, here for the Nashville Sounds, and done some color commentary on the radio. And also, I'm a huge college baseball fan. And here in Nashville, we have a great college baseball program in Vanderbilt. And on several occasions, I've also sat in with the broadcaster and done some color commentary for Vanderbilt baseball as well. I dabbled in, for several years ago. I'm a big Weather Channel junkie, and I love weather. And I cut public service spots for to help to promote those radios that can actually help save your life in an emergency. And I was able to do that.
Oh wow, wow, that's great. And now the Milwaukee Brewers, is that one of the teams?
Place in their division, and well over the half of the guys that play on that team are former Nashville Sons. So it's kind of great to watch them on TV and realize not that long ago they were playing right here in Nashville.
Right, and you got to go on the bus with them sometimes. I believe that you, when they went off and tour somewhere or another and went to play, that you went. Now, tell us a little about how you uh, picked your fashions out, and how did you become a connoisseur? Because me as a young boy like that, I'd have plaids and checks and everything else going. But as you growed up, tell me a little bit about that story there.
Well, before I joined the Oak Ridge Boys, I sang. I told you I organized my own group called the Keystone Quartet, and there was another group known as the Eastman Quartet that I sang in for a while up in the northeastern part of the country. But it was strictly a part-time job, so I had to get a regular job during the week, and I for quite some time I worked in Philadelphia for a place called Gimbel Brothers, and I sold men's clothing. I worked in the men's clothing department, and I think that kind of spurred my interest in men's clothing, and I developed an interest. And it's kind of interesting, our Joe Bonzel, our longtime tenor singer, who just recently passed away. He he lived in Philadelphia, and he would come and visit me when I was selling men's clothes there in Gimbel Brothers, and we talk about music, we talk about singing, and we never dreamed back in those days that someday we would both end up being in the Oak Ridge Boys. Occasionally, Joe would buy a shirt from me or something, but we mainly got together and we talked about music. But it was those days of working in a men's clothing department in Gimbel's in Philadelphia that I developed my interest in men's clothing, and I followed that through when the Oak Ridge Boys, we started having hit records and we became a big name in country music. I actually hired a gentleman from New York, to help me with my clothing. And I would go to New York City and buy these fancy looking jackets and things. So it's kind of a hobby of mine that I kind of played with, and I've always enjoyed it over the years.
Yeah, and you probably got a good eye when you see someone walking down the street that think they're really fashionable, and you say, "Uh-oh, that don't match."
Well, and I'll have to tell you this, my wife would go with me to all my trips to New York, and she paid a close attention to what this guy was telling me about fashion, and she learned a few things. So she's kind of my fashion designer today, and she doesn't charge me near as much as that guy charged me.
So she didn't know it, but she was a fashion designer in training back
Yeah,
then.
I think you're right about that.
Uh, now, because I looked on a lot of your different videos there and seen a lot of uh, your different clothing. Because after I read that and like that, so I will check his style out there and
Now,
you
not today. So this is my casual look today.
of course. Now we can't judge on that right there. Now your wife's name's Donna, correct?
That's correct.
And you
Yes.
have two girls, Lauren and Tori.
You're correct about that, and I have 3 sons, from my first marriage.
Uh-huh.
I've got yeah, I've got 7 grandkids now,
Wow.
and 2 great grandkids, 2 great granddaughters. So, I've been around for a
Well,
while.
does any of those picked up your genes of singing?
Well, not really, not in a professional way at all. I think they all love the fact that I am an Oak Ridge boy, and they come out and they support me and come to my shows. And now I've got 2 young great grandsons. The one is just about to turn 2, the other one just turned 1, and they're both a handful. And we don't know yet. They could develop into a singing talent. Well, yeah, I think time will tell right there.
That's it. The only time will tell. Now, with the Keystone Quartet that you I guess that you begin with, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
And what directions did those guys go? Did they go professionally, or just kind of thinking that this was just a whim of singing? And
Well, they all enjoyed singing. One of the best singers we had in the group, he's already passed on. He's in heaven now. And another gentleman, he decided to end up being preacher and pastor at church, and he just recently passed on as well. So I'm really the only one that took it to another level, so to speak. I was fortunate enough to be hired by J.D. Sumner, as I told you earlier, and
Right.
I moved to Nashville. And I've already mentioned, I ended up singing with Elvis. So I'm really blessed. I'm really fortunate. So many great things have been happened to me personally, and the most important thing that happened to me is the decision that I made in 1972 to leave Elvis and to join the Oak Ridge Boys. That's something that really did change my life. There's no question about it.
Now, your first time on stage with JD Sumter and Stamps like that, was you nervous?
No question about it. Believe it or not, J.D. Sumner, he's in the Guinness Book of World Records as the world's lowest bass singer. So, yes, I was a little intimidated. There's no question about it. And I was nervous. And also, I'll never forget the first time I joined the Oak Ridge Boys, the first time I ever sang on stage with the Oak Ridge Boys, I was so nervous I could hardly stand it. But after a period of time, you kind of get used to it, and you kind of, hey, you realize, this is where I'm supposed to be. If I did not have the talent, I would not be here. So after a while, you start developing some confidence in yourself.
Well, apparently, JD Summer seen something special when you because this is when the beginning with singing with Elvis, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, it was a special time. Uh, back when I sang with Elvis, there's no question he was the biggest star in the world. His tour was the biggest tour in the music business. And to be a part of it, it was very, very exciting, and I had some great memories of the times I spent with Elvis. I got to know Elvis just a little bit, and it was a special time in my life. And now that many years have passed, and I look back on that experience, I'm thankful that I was fortunate enough to experience that because it was a special time in my life.
Oh, it had to be because he was the king of rock and roll. And
No doubt about it. Yes.
now, you got to be in a movie with Elvis, correct?
That is correct. I was in the last movie that Elvis made. Actually, it was a movie called Elvis on Tour.
Uh-huh.
And now it was a documentary. So there was not a lot of acting going on. Basically, what it was, they filmed a lot of behind the scenes kind of things. They had shots of a recording session. In fact, probably the most well known record I sang on with Elvis was a song called "Burning Love."
Oh yes.
A hunk of
Oh,
hunk
yeah.
of burning love. They actually filmed part of recording that in the recording studio out in RCA studios in LA. And then there was a lot of rehearsals, filmed. There was traveling, flying on an airplane, getting from date to date to date. So there was not a lot of acting, but a lot of behind the scenes kind of things. Now, when we knew the camera was on, we acted, even though we were not supposed to. Technically, I did not have lines that I had to say or anything like that. I just had to be myself, and it was a lot of fun. It really was.
Well,
And
yeah.
every now and then, and usually around the anniversary of Elvis's death, they will play that movie on TV. And I look back on that and I figured, I was young one time. I was young at once. I was in my 20s back then.
Well, I was wondering if they was telling you like, so you're going to be in a movie with Elvis like that. I'll be thinking, wow, I'm going to be on the bikini with all those, these girls in bikinis running around and all this right here and fancy.
Well, there was none of that in this particular movie. It was,
Right.
behind the scenes kind of things. As I said, it was a documentary, and a lot, there was footage on stage. One of the biggest dates Elvis played back then was live from Madison Square Garden, and there was footage of that show on there as well.
Well, that was a sold out show, if I'm not mistaken.
And they actually recorded that show and made a live recording out of that. And to this day, believe it or not, every now and then I get a statement in the mail. People still buy that record. It's still even 50 years almost after Elvis passed away. That record is still selling, actually.
Well, I told my wife when I leave this world, I'm going to be cremated, and I said, "Now you can put me in a little jar and put up there on the shelf and put on there a hunk of burning love."
That was a lot of fun. I remember that day recording that song, and could tell it was going to be a hit. It felt like a hit, and sure enough, it became one of the biggest records then. And then it's kind of interesting. Later on, several years later, after I joined the Oak Ridge Boys, I'll never forget the day we recorded Elvira. It was almost the same feeling. You could tell this was a special song. You could tell this song was going to be a hit. And sure enough, it became one of the biggest records in not just country music, but in the total music business back in 1981. And to this day, it's still our signature song. But when we recorded it, we knew we had something special because
Right.
it felt like a hit. And you can count on the fact where whenever we perform, you're going to hear that song, and you're going to hear me do "Giddy Up, Oom Papa, Mau Mau."
And that was the signature right there of it. I remember when the song came out, and now when you was Elvis, excuse me, I was looking at the itinerary here that he had. Man, y'all was like one day here, one next day here, and the next day here. I mean, it's just almost like for the whole month of June. There, it's like you were if you wasn't traveling, you was right there doing a concert. It had to be brutal.
Well, you're right, and we did. Elvis worked hard. There's no question about it. He worked very hard. In fact, even in Las Vegas, he did 2 shows a night, which is unheard of in this day and age. But Elvis worked very, very hard, and that helped prepare me for what was to come later on in my life. Uh, I developed a work ethic, if I could put it that way, from being around Elvis and being there, and that helped prepare me for later on becoming an Oak Ridge boy. And we have been known for years as a group that works hard, works a lot, and that we're still doing that to this very day.
Right.
We are now on our farewell tour, so we're not working quite as hard as we used to, and we're older now, so we can't work as hard as we used to. But we slowed down some. But traditionally, we have always been a group that worked hard, and I think that foundation developed from working with Elvis.
Oh, definitely, because he definitely worked about as hard as any artist that I know of, even nowadays. He just puts it in there. I mean, when you sell out 4 times Madison Square Garden, completely sell it out, that's unheard of. and and I seen a picture of you right behind it. I mean, it's like that you're just really into the moment there, and just you see the expression on your face, how you're loving this, eating this up, and that's the part of even the Oak Ridge Boys we see that love for that music.
Well, there's no doubt about it. Even to this very day, as I mentioned earlier, we're now on our farewell tour, but we still look forward every night to getting on that stage, taking our music live to our fans and to our audiences. That's what we live for. And that, even after all of these years, that is still something very special to the Oak Ridge Boys. And I think, in this day and age, especially of social media, we get so much feedback from our fans that tell us how our music has helped them, how our music has helped them get through difficult times in their lives. And that makes us feel so good. We want to be remembered as a group that certainly made a contribution to the music business. And I think we've done exactly just that. But I think more importantly than that, we want to be remembered as a group that help people with our music. And we hear that every day, how our music has helped people get through difficult times in their lives.
Right.
We walk on that stage at night, we never know what people are going through out there. So we're thankful that our music, contains messages and lyrics that can help people. And that makes us feel so good.
How did it feel to sing at the inauguration of George Bush?
Well, that was a great experience. There's no doubt about it. We, believe it or not, we actually got to know George Bush when he was the vice president.
Okay.
Ronald Reagan was the president at the time. He invited the Oak Ridge Boys to sing at the Congressional Barbecue, which is held on the lawn of the White House. And I remember that day in the afternoon, we were doing a sound check on the lawn of the White House. We were actually rehearsing right there on the stage they had set up there. And I remember that day just looking around at the White House, the green lawn and everything, and figured, this is pretty special. This is not going to be a normal day. And sure enough, while we were rehearsing, this tall gentleman came walking across the lawn. He walked up onto the stage and he introduced himself as Vice President George Bush. And he did not have to do that. We recognized him certainly immediately. And he said, "Fellas, I can't I can't come to the show tonight because he had to fly somewhere for on some vice presidential business." So I said, "But would you guys be willing to do a few songs for me right here, right now?" We said, "Sure, Mr. Vice President. What would you like to hear?" And I think we realized then at that very moment that he was telling us the truth, that he was indeed a big fan, because he started naming songs that were not necessarily hits. He was naming album cuts, what we call deep cuts. And so right there on the spot that afternoon, we proceeded to give him a little mini concert. That afternoon, we established a friendship with him. It lasted until he passed away. We got to know him very well. We got to know his wonderful wife, Barbara. They became dear friends. And it had very little of anything to do with politics. It was friendship. That was the most important thing. And we were honored to campaign for him. We sang it at the inauguration. We sang for him many times while he was in the White House. After he left the White House, we'd sing for him on many occasions. Some of our fondest memories actually go of the four of Oak Ridge boys going to Kennebunkport, Maine, where they spend their summers. And we'd actually hang out with George and Barbara Bush. We'd go fishing with President Bush. And of course, we'd always have to do mini concerts right there in his living room. And he always had to invite the neighbors over, of course, so it was a special time. And then, so many over the course of the years, many times we sang for him. And every time we sang for him, he always requested his favorite song, which was Amazing Grace.
Oh,
And so
wow.
we were always honored to sing Amazing Grace for President Bush. Not too long before he passed away, he asked us if we would sing Amazing Grace at his funeral.
Oh,
And
wow.
we said, "Sure, Mr. President, you can count on us. We will be there." We had no idea we were going to be in Spokane, Washington, but we were actually doing a Christmas show in Spokane, Washington. After the Christmas show, we went to the airport, got on a private plane that was donated to us by a very dear friend. We flew to Houston, met with George W. Bush and Jeb Bush and the Bush family. They all thanked us for singing for their father. And we sang Amazing Grace there at President Bush's funeral. A very emotional experience, as you can probably imagine. After the funeral, we went back to the airport, got on a private jet, flew back to Kennewick, Washington, another place in the state of Washington, did another Christmas show. And in the process, we did not miss a date. But the most important thing is we kept our promise that President Bush, when we sang Amazing Grace at his funeral, that is something we will never, ever forget.
That had to be a tremendous honor.
No, no question about it. No question.
Well, I've seen a picture that I kind of chuckled a little bit about with you and George Bush Jr. there that you were talking, he was talking to you and the president was speaking. He said, "Oh, the president's speaking. Hi, it's just my dad."
Yeah. And another thing, the original question you asked was about singing at President Bush's inauguration.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, at the inauguration when he accepted the nomination, to be president of the United States. At the end of the convention before the inauguration, yeah, we all had to sing, "God Bless America" together. And I'll never forget, we were all up on the stage singing, and President Bush came over and stood right next to us, and actually close enough to me. And he sang bass as well to show me that he could also sing bass. But I was glad that he was going to be the president of the United States and not the next bass singer.
Correct, correct. And that's one thing about you being blessed with these years of things that just blesses your life, and you see God moving in the things in your life, from your children to the way they're growing up, the way that you grew up with music and how God placed you in one place and the opportunity door open to another. That to me, that's shows God's blessing upon you.
Well, there's no question about that. And all four Oak Ridge boys, we were all raised in Christian homes.
Mhm.
We were all taught right from wrong. And we've always taught to be honest in our business dealings, and we've tried to carry that through into our adult lives. And so that is a very, very important to us. And we've always asked the good Lord for divine guidance, and He has always provided that to the Oak Ridge boys. And that will bring it up to this very present day. As you probably know, we're going through a difficult time right now. We just lost our former singing partner, Joe Bonzo. It's been a difficult thing to have to deal with. And we also have had other losses in our families. We've come through a difficult time right now in our lives. But we've asked the good Lord to help us get through this difficult time, and He's doing just that. And I think, especially in the case of Joe and other family members, one thing we get comforted is the fact that we know, even though they are not here with us any longer, we know that they are in a better place, and that helps us get through. And we know that someday we're going to see them again. So we're very excited about that part. So that helps us get through. So the good Lord helping us and blessing us is a big part of the Oak Ridge Boys' career. It really is.
Now you just released a album in, is it June that you released this album?
Well, yeah, we have actually we have two albums, and we just released an album, with to celebrate 50 years of being together. It's the last album, that Joe Bonzel is on. But we've also recorded a new album here as well. Back in January, we went into the studio right after Ben James became a member of the Oak Ridge Boys, and we worked on a new project. We are now being produced by Dave Cobb. He's done the last 5 albums on the Oak Ridge Boys, and Dave Cobb is one of the hottest guys in Nashville here now, and we're honored that he produces us. And we have a new album coming out in the fall called Mama's Boys, and all the songs are about mama and about family, the values that the Oak Ridge Boys believe in. And so that's coming out, and it'll feature Ben James, our new tenor singer. So we're excited about that as well. So we're still working in the studio. We still love the creative process of creating new music, and we do have new music that'll be coming out in the future by the Oak Ridge Boys.
Now you got your talking about your farewell tour, and this is coming around Christmas time, my understanding.
Well, we've been doing the farewell tour now for a while. But last fall we announced it, and
Okay.
what we want to do with this farewell tour. I've already mentioned how we've been blessed. We've had a great career. So many great things have happened to us, and we want to take time to go to as many places as we can possibly go to and say thank you. Thank you to our fans. Thank you to everyone that has allowed us to have such a great career. Thankful to thankful. We want to thank people like yourselves you've been good to the Oak Ridge Boys. You've always said so many good things about us. People in radio that have played our records. We just want to say thank you. Now that's going to take us a while. We have a lot of places to still get to. So, we originally thought that, maybe the farewell tour would take a year, and, but it's going to take us longer than that. So, while we are on our farewell tour, we do not know when the farewell tour will end. So we are not retired just yet. I think the good Lord above, I told you we depend on divine guidance, and the good Lord above will let us know when it's time to retire for good. He has not said that yet. So we are going to be around for a while. We thought, as I said, we thought it would just take us a year to do the farewell tour. We're now booking dates next year. So we're not retired. We will be around. So you never know. You and I may be talking again someday.
That would be great. Of course, Oak Ridge Boys is your favorite songs, but what is your the artist that you mostly um, admire or love? Kind of give you some inspiration as you was growing into your singing career.
Well, that's a difficult question because and you could ask any member of the Oak Ridge Boys that same question, and you would probably get a little bit of a different answer because everyone has come up in a little bit of a different way, and we've been inspired by different people. I would say, I actually end up singing with the guy that inspired me as much as anybody, and that is Elvis. I've already talked about Elvis quite a bit, and I always loved Elvis's music. And I think the main reason I loved Elvis's music because he always had a quartet on his records. He always had that bass singer on there, and that always fascinated me. And so that Elvis and his music inspired me as much as anything. And as far as an artist outside of country music, or outside of the area of music that we perform in, I would have to say Andrea Bocelli. One
Okay.
of the greatest concerts that I've ever been to was actually him. Actually, my wife surprised me. We went to Philadelphia and we saw him in concert, and it was a special moment and one of the greatest voices that I've ever heard. So I'm kind of diverse in the kind of music that I like, and I think, as I said, you could ask any member of the Oak Ridge Boys that same question, and you'd probably get a slightly different answer.
Yeah. You got to meet Johnny Cash, the man in black.
No question about it.
Tell me a little bit about that first meeting, because Johnny Cash is an icon, and also,
Well, there's a lot of people that have been influential in the Oak Ridge Boys' career, and Johnny Cash has to come at the top of that list. I don't think there'd be an Oak Ridge Boys today if it wasn't for Johnny Cash. He at the time in our career when we were kind of a struggling act, he kind of took us under his wing, so to speak. Him and his wonderful wife, June Carter, both of them, they were very special to us. And I'll never forget one time we were playing in Las Vegas with Johnny Cash. We had no other dates booked. We had no idea how we were going to continue to stay together as the Oak Ridge Boys. And our heads were kind of hanging just a little bit. And I think Johnny Cash, he detected that. He could sense that. And it was a week-long engagement. And one day during the middle of that week, he called us all up. And he said, "Fellas, come to my room. I want to talk to you guys." And so we went to Johnny Cash's room. And he said, "Fellas, I can tell you're a little discouraged. Your heads are hanging a little bit." He said, "But I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to do whatever it takes to stay together. There's something very special about you guys. If you give up now, you will never realize your dreams. I know you're special, but people don't know it yet. But if you give up, people are not going to find out about it. So I want you to stay together." And he says, "I promise you, if you find a way to stay together, good things are going to start happening to you guys." He said, "I give you my word on that." He said, "I will try to help you as much as I possibly can." And he always paid us more money than we were worth. He always did, so he helped us financially. But his words of encouragement, that was the most important thing, and so he said, "You got to do it yourself, though. You got to find a way to stay together. And if you do, good, you're going to make it. Good things are going to happen." So I remember leaving that meeting that day, all of us looking at each other, and I said, "Wow, if Johnny Cash thinks we can make it, and he thinks we're going to make it, we're going to make it." So sure enough, to try to make this long story short, we did find a way to stay together. And not too long after that, good things did start happening to the Oak Ridge Boys. We met Jim Halsey, who became our manager. He signed us to our first record contract. We started having hit records, and good things started happening to us. But I think the inspiration that was provided to us by Johnny Cash is something that we will never, ever forget. And as I said, a few minutes, I don't think the Oak Ridge Boys would be here today if it wasn't for Johnny Cash. He is a very, very special person.
wow. And that's, and when a star like that gives you that encouragement, it lifts your spirits up real well, doesn't it?
It really does. Like I say, I cannot say enough about how special Johnny Cash was to the Oak Ridge Boys, and we still remember him very fondly. We really do.
Yeah. You got to meet so many different stars, and some of my heroes like Sammy Davis Jr., Glenn Campbell, uh, Roy Clark during that time, and that had to be a to me, a fun time meeting these guys and uh, looking at their experiences and their singing and the way, because it's a little bit different than yours. It gives you a little bit more, I think, encouragement. And
Oh, there's no doubt about it. All those names you just mentioned. Roy Clark was a dear friend. We certainly wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the inspiration that he provided for us. But you mentioned Sammy Davis Jr. I will. There's an experience that I'll never forget. We were actually working the Jerry Lewis Telethon in Las Vegas. And I remember being on the side of the stage waiting for our turn to go on. And Sammy Davis Jr. was going to go on just before us. And he came walking up there on a cane. He was limping so badly. You could tell he was in pain. And when they announced him, he put that cane down and he ran out there on stage. And he was in pain. He went out there and he sang and did his dance like nothing was ever wrong with him. And then he came back and he grabbed that cane again and he walked. But for that brief moment when the show had to go on, for Sammy Davis Jr., the show definitely went on, and it was an inspiration to all four of us. And I don't think I will ever, ever forget that experience. He was a true professional, and he treated things the way they were supposed to be treated. Is very special, to say the least.
wow, the song Elvira, how did that transpire?
The song Elvira was actually written by a gentleman named Dallas Frazier. And this is a great story. Uh, Dallas Frazier passed on a few years ago, but he was our neighbor here. He lived in a place called Gallatin, Tennessee, which is a neighboring town to Hendersonville, where we all live, where I'm talking to you from right now. And it's all part of the Nashville metropolitan area. And the way he tells the story, he was coming home from a writer's session or a recording session or something from Nashville, driving through East Nashville, Tennessee, or a place called Madison, Tennessee, actually. And he came up to a street sign that said Elvira Street. He saw that street sign. He pulled his car right up to that street sign. And as he told the story, he immediately got a piece of paper, an envelope or something, and he wrote down right there on the spot, Elvira, Elvira, my heart's on fire for Elvira. And then he wrote the giddy up Papa Mau Mau part right there on the spot. And he said that the Papa Mau Mau parts actually imitate the bumps, the potholes or the chug holes, as some people call them, on Elvira Street. And so now later on, when he got home, he wrote verses about a woman, so the whole thing would make more sense. But the original inspiration to write Elvira came from a street sign in East Nashville, Tennessee, and the Papa Mau Mau it came from the bumps on the road. Now,
Wow.
later on, when we got into the recording studio with our producer, Ron Chansey, who produced, most of the number one records on the Oak Ridge Boys, it was Ron Chansey's idea for me to take that line, Papa Mau Mau, and do it and do it as a bass part. And so I just took that line and adapted it to my way of doing things, and I guess it turned out okay because it's probably one of the most well-known bass lines in all of the music business. But most people don't realize it imitates the bumps on the road on Elvira Street. And I've never written a song myself, but I've talked to enough songwriters, and they will tell you you never know where inspiration is going to come or the inspiration is going to come from to write a song. And in the case of Elvira, it came from a street sign. So,
Right.
and
It's
and
great.
to this day, it's our signature song. And you can count on the fact that every time we come your way, wherever we play on the rest of this farewell tour, you're going to hear Elvira. You're going to hear Giddy Up, Papa Mau Mau.
That goes to show you that inspiration of a song can come from anywhere, even from
Anywhere at all. Yes.
even potholes. In South Carolina, we have a lot of potholes. That is great. What is something that I think Elvis told you in 1975? You and him were together.
Pardon?
you and Elvis were together in 1975, and he kind of asked you something. Y'all was in conversation with each other. I was reading a
Well,
little.
yeah, what you're probably referring to is the fact that, we were actually, I told you, we met Jim Halsey, and he was very instrumental. He became our manager. He's in his 90s and he's still our manager today, but Jim Halsey booked us in Las Vegas to kind of help get us going. And we worked a place called the Frontier Hotel. Or not, and we played there, but we also played a place, what I'm thinking of is a place called the Landmark Hotel. It is no longer there. They tore it down, but it was located right across the street from the Las Vegas Hilton, which also used to be called the International Hotel. And we were playing there, and Elvis was playing right across the street. I had just joined the Oak Ridge Boys. I just left Elvis just shortly before that. The other guys in the group had not had ever chance to meet Elvis. And that's an experience you'll never forget. The first time you ever meet Elvis, you'll never forget that experience. But anyway, they asked me if I could call over there and arrange for them to go over and meet Elvis. So I called over there and I talked to Charlie Hodge, I believe, or somebody working with Elvis, and they arranged for us to go over there and meet Elvis before his show. And I remember we went over there. The other three guys were all went in there and they all met Elvis, and they had that same experience that I had the first time I ever met Elvis. Wow, your jaws drops. Now, this is actually Elvis. What an experience. But while we were all standing there talking, Elvis kind of pulled me aside, and he said, is there any way that I could talk you into coming back? I said, no, Elvis, I don't think so. I said, I really believe I'm in the right place where I'm supposed to be, and I'm going to stick here with the Oak Ridge Boys. It's a great compliment, and I thank you for it, but I'm sitting with the Oak Ridge Boys, and boy, am I glad that I have done exactly just that, because it was 1972 that I made that decision.
And I want to thank you so much for being on my show here. And we're in a small county, and I try to bring some insights into some of the younger people here that's going into music, into things that they haven't made that choice yet, and just want to hear some experiences of some guys that started out as a 10-year-old soprano that went to a national bass icon, and I just really appreciate you and the Oak Ridge Boys, all that you do spiritually and musically to help others.
Well, thank you so much. It's been my pleasure to talk to you, and thank you for doing this. As I said, we're on our farewell tour, and we want to say thank you to as many people as possible. So thank you for how you have been so kind to the Oak Ridge Boys, and how you've helped us. So thank you very much.
Well, you have a blessed day, and thank you again.
Thanks, sir. Bye.
Okay.
Bye
Bye.
now.